Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome, Lorio.
Thank you. Welcome. Hello.
Cool. I just want to post one more link, and then we're done. Paste, send, done. Okay, cool. Okay, so to everybody out there, we are broadcasting on the YouTube Duly Diagnosed channel, the ARC Facebook page, and the My Rehab Helper Facebook profile. And those are the public channels. So those are that's gonna be we're gonna be broadcasting to those channels for the first 10 to 20 minutes, and then we're gonna switch over exclusively to the My Rehab Cafe group. And the rest of the workshop's going to be run via that channel. So if anybody's on the My Rehab Cafe group, you want a higher degree of confidentiality, please wait until the broadcast ends on the public channels, and then you can hop on. If you're on the public channels and you want to hop on and participate, please do so. The link is in the comments of the video, wherever it's being broadcast. We'd really appreciate your input and your participation. And that's the speech for now, Lorio. So we're going to be doing a worksheet called Setting and Maintaining Boundaries. Let me share that screen. Okay. Cool. So when we have healthy personal boundaries, we can accept positive people and actions in our lives, but protect ourselves from those that are harmful. In trying to protect ourselves, we may have learned not to trust anyone or allow anyone to get close emotionally. On the other hand, in our search for love and acceptance, we may have made ourselves too vulnerable and let others hurt us too easily. Healthy boundaries let us choose whom to trust, how far to trust them, and what actions to accept from them. We also learn to respect the boundaries of others in what we do or say to them. Just some of the people with whom you have difficulty in setting or maintaining healthy boundaries, along with the situations that you have, the situations where you have trouble with them, and what the results have been. I'm going to hand that over to you, Lorio.
Okay. So yes, I think we have spoken about boundaries before in some of the conversations that we've had. I think I just want to bring everybody back in terms of what is actually our topic. So we are discussing, the
Yes.
dynamics in terms of relationships, specifically navigating relationships post recovery or post rehab, in recovery technically. So I think boundaries is very, very important, because that's probably the main thing that most patients struggle with when they leave the rehab facility. So I think that healthy level in terms of when is my family or my boss maybe, or colleagues or friends, when are they trying to control me, versus when is there healthy boundaries and agreement in terms of how we're going to move forward. I think I said it last week as well, so I'll just very quickly reiterate it. I always say you can't start negotiating boundaries if you don't have some key ingredients in a relationship. So again, when we're going to work through this worksheet, I actually want you to think of somebody that you have a relationship with, where there is at least a level of communication, there's support, there's a level of trust, accountability, respect, as we said, because I think it's going to be difficult to try and navigate boundaries with somebody that's actually not interested. Obviously, every person or every one of us have boundaries that goes without saying, physical boundaries and so forth. But I think here we're talking more about boundaries specifically related to recovery as well. So I think the sheet asks you to specifically start by identifying who you struggle to implement boundaries with and to help you understand why it might be difficult. So if you look there, it goes that you have to list the person, actually the situation, what happened in the situation, and how you were affected by it. And I think, again, we in these worksheets, there's a lot of tracking and monitoring processes, but that's very important. Is you have to kind of find a pattern or a theme first before you just jump in and kind of want to generalize it to say things always go or never go a certain way. So here, at least you gather some objective evidence for a while to try and identify really, is it something that really happens regularly, or does it just feel like it's something that occurs more often than not? And that will also help you identify, which actions to prioritize. That makes
I'm
sense.
having some technical difficulties on my end.
Can you not hear me?
No, I can. But my mic keeps on muting. So if it goes off, just give me a wave, please. Because I'll just
okay. I will do so.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sorry.
Now you're back.
Wonder why it keeps on doing that. Sorry, just give me a second.
Is it maybe something on my end I need to look for?
No, it's definitely on my end, eh? Okay, well, let's hope. So you and I have had a difficult weekend and week with a few events that have occurred. Can boundaries because something that I'm not good at is keeping. I don't know if this makes sense, Lario, and I'm just trying to. I'm speaking out loud here, right? But so I was called out on Friday for an issue that I don't know if it was absolutely necessary for me to go out and resolve. But I still felt motivated to do that, right? So it was a boundary. Could the boundary have been maybe like, hey man, it's like 9 o'clock on a Friday night, and I'm supposed to be spending time with my family. Setting boundaries in those sense. Am I sort of barking up the right tree here?
Yeah, look, I think that's maybe important to mention, is that you first have to have boundaries with yourself before you try and negotiate boundaries with somebody else. So if your boundary is, I need to make sure that I don't over-involve myself in things or overcommit myself. I need to, before I say yes to something or get involved in something, first assess what is my need or my family's need. And then, if it's interfering with that or it's not, it will take too much energy maybe, then a person might first instill a personal boundary to say, you know what, you almost say no to yourself first before you say no to another person, if that makes sense. So I think there's a difference between negotiating boundaries interpersonally versus having boundaries intrapersonally, within yourself.
That's interesting. I think entrepreneurial people in general, and I feel that I fall within that category. There's this high degree of anxiety that motivates action like that, right? So having to deal with the crisis at 9 o'clock on a Friday. So there isn't even a sort of consideration in my mind as to what the priority is. You know what I mean? And I know that sounds terrible. It really is the case for me. It's like, well, I've it's almost like I'm saying, hey, well, work, comes first and foremost, over and above everything else, including my family. And that's like a hectic statement, right? So, but it's almost as though my actions say that, if that makes sense. So yeah, having boundaries from intrapersonal boundaries, like you said, like you mentioned, it's difficult, and it can drive a lot of dysfunction should you not sort of be mindful of that, I think, because
Yeah.
I've really neglected interpersonal relationships a hell of a lot because I was so driven by the anxiety that sort of motivates me to sort of like deal with crises all the time and sort of step in and take care of things. And
Look, I think there might be a need for an entrepreneurial support group because I think most entrepreneurs would agree with you and would find, the same type of. So I think it's obviously context specific, and I think if you manage your own business or if you are responsible for other people, whether it be colleagues or whichever, obviously there's context involved there. So I think then it's important that your family understands, kind of where those boundaries lie, so that there's no misunderstandings, and to know that it might at times, unfortunately, have to be a bit flexible. And I think if you can be honest about your intent by saying, I'm not unnecessarily getting myself involved in things, then, the family in some way, would respect that. So, it's like doctors as well. Doctors almost have zero boundaries because, especially some of them, they have to be on call 24/7, so, but I think the people that are involved in their lives understand that it's for a greater purpose or goal or whichever, but they still need certain boundaries to say, on top of my doctor work, I can't just say yes to, let's say, example, my sister every time she asks me to babysit her kids. There I then need to start establishing some boundaries and say, I have to be at work, or I need to answer the phone when it's an emergency, but I might need to with other things then put more stricter boundaries in so that I have a bit of time for myself or for my family to say, you know what, I would love to babysit your kids, but tonight I'm actually going date nighting with my husband or wife or whatever, without feeling guilty.
That's interesting. So I want to just quickly, you mentioned doctors. Doctors and lawyers, from my experience, on Wednesdays play golf. Okay, and
Yes.
the whole world can the whole world can fall apart.
Yes.
But they're going to be playing their golf, and they're going to have their beer at the end of the day and chill and relax, because like you say, they work long hours and it's intense. So, and then when they go on holiday as well, just like nowhere to be found, the phone's off or whatever. And I think that's it's probably because the rest of the time they're really navigating and fielding calls and dealing with dramas all day long. I think it's so they fall into the category of sort of like being self-employed, if I can put it that way. So if they don't work, they don't earn an income. So it is kind of like there is that anxiety that drives. Sorry, I don't know if I'm digressing here, but from the boundary point of view, but I think like sort of setting that boundary. I know I was told once by my very close friend Brian. He said to me, Ryan, listen, you work nonstop, balls to the wall. It's like it's nuts, and you burn yourself out. And he was right, and I do, and I burn myself up. And the last time I did that, I burnt myself up to a cinder. It was like, I think I really feel like there was even like physiological changes that happened in me as a result of the kind of burnout that I experienced. So the reason I'm saying that is Brian said to me, he said, Ryan, at lunchtime, between 12 and 1, stop, put everything down, and go and have yourself a lunch and have a meal and take that time to do that. So again, that's intrapersonal boundary, right? That falls under that scope.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think maybe that's then coming back to the worksheet, something a person needs to assess first is to say, before I think of everybody else that I don't agree with or that I struggle with, I can rather just maybe list myself first and say I struggle to navigate or really commit to boundaries with myself, at the end of the day. So, and I know I've struggled with that a lot, where I would say this weekend I'm going to do my own thing, and then before Thursday my whole weekend's booked out, and so I think it's really a struggle, but I think that's probably, if you can get that right efficiently, then you'll be a lot more successful in trying to navigate boundaries with other people, because you'll also have a bit of empathy on why that's a bit harder or a bit easier said than done.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, so understanding yourself first from that perspective, and then sort of like just translating that to. I always so like for example, like this is another thing. So whenever if I get sick, like flu sick, it can be the end of the universe, right? My wife will tell you it's like it's the man flu thing,
But we
right?
know, yeah, we know man flu exists,
Yeah.
but yes.
So and it's so weird because I would always like have staff like phoning in sick and they'd be off for like a couple of days and I'd be like, that's ridiculous. How can they be off for so long? And then I'd get sick and I'd be like, oh shit, okay, yeah, this is not cool. In fact, so yeah, I think I think that those personal sort of boundaries and you know, experiencing those things helps with, like you say, having empathy for other people that go through the same things. Okay. Are we going to go on to a question? Do we have any questions? No. Well, let's see. Why do you think you're able to set and maintain boundaries? Why do you think you're able to set and maintain boundaries with the people, situations, or actions on the second list, but not on the first list? Okay, so let's go back there. Okay, if there are people, situations, or actions about which you are able to set and maintain healthy boundaries, please list them here. I think you have difficulty. Yeah, so Lario, I'm just going to speak about what I know, and I've really looked a lot into the big five personality thing. And again, I always just bring it back to like the agreeable versus disagreeable, and you know, people very high in compassion tend not to have very strong boundaries. Generally, females or generally women are more agreeable than men. And I think that leaves the door open for females to kind of like, or for agreeable people, let's say, to develop resentments because they aren't very assertive with regards to their boundaries. And from what I understand about those personality traits, they aren't necessarily, you can't necessarily become, you know, go from being an highly agreeable person to being a disagreeable person. You can't really move that to a degree, but you can do things like assertiveness training, right?
Yes, yeah, 100%. I think it's important if you make the two lists that you bear those kind of personality traits in mind. Like I said last week, I've often found that people that bump heads the most are often the most similar, and that people that are somewhat different kind of they find their middle ground. So at the end of the day, you know, if you are a person that's high in you know, in agreeableness, and you have another person who's high in agreeableness, you know, that might actually cause issues somewhere along the line. And I agree with what you say about, you know, if you're overly agreeable, that it might lead to resentment later on because you're just storing all of that kind of disagreement away somewhere, and somewhere it's going to spill over, whether it's with the person that you disagreed with or whether it's with another innocent party who might end up being a bit of collateral damage. So I think it's important to kind of, again, understand your audience. Who are you dealing with? And I think also try and understand what is the history behind each of the relationships. You know, obviously you might find that you struggle more with somebody that you've known since hey hi, because there's a lot more baggage, there's a lot more things that you had to go through, versus a friend that you met a couple of years back in college and you guys kind of started on common ground and worked your way up from there. So I think, yeah, it's important when you have the two lists to compare and to try and see, you know, what traits and what themes and what are the things that makes it different, that you might get along with somebody, or maybe even in the same family, you might get along with one person but not the other.
Okay, so time's up in the public channels. I'm going to end the broadcast after a quick video that'll explain to you guys what the Mariab Cafe is all about. So if anybody out there is interested, please go to www.mariab.com or mariabcafe.com, or mariabcafe.co.za, and you'll find more about the Mariab Cafe group. If you've just left an inpatient program at the Mariab facility or at the ARC facility, access to the Mariab group is there's no charge for it. So there are different levels that you can consider if you want to sort of do a bit more of an intensive thing. There are costs involved with that, but the sort of basic package is free to ex-patients or graduates, if you want to call them that. Cool. There's a video. Let me find it. Okay, thanks everyone on the public channel. See you guys soon. Cool.
What's up guys, Mariab Helper here. I want to tell you about a refreshing approach to a process of self-discovery for anyone that's just left a rehab program for substance abuse issues, or for anyone wanting to engage with a community of others on a journey of self-discovery. The My Rehab Cafe initiative is a thriving community focused on sobriety. You'll find that this group is thriving and full of conversations and discussion on what is working for those who are staying sober. Some members have used 12-step programs and others have never stepped foot into a meeting, but they all have one thing in common. They are serious about quitting drinking and leading a better life. New members often express how friendly, open and welcoming the community feels, even more than they expected. We achieve this by fostering a community built on trust and fairness, with policies in place and enforce a no jerks allowed policy. We will make a point of getting you plugged in and connected with the community, and all this with the understanding that you want to be here and the expectation that you will put in the effort and participate in the group. Members gain access to recovery resources like worksheets, online lectures, online Q&A sessions, online discussion forums, online workshops, linking with an accountability partner and the My Rehab podcast. In My Rehab Cafe, you'll get advice and tips from members who have been sober for years, from those who have been where you are. They have a tremendous amount of experience to share, but so do you. We have chosen to grow this group slowly, paying attention to who may be a good fit and who may not be. This group may not be for everyone, and that's okay. Those who realize it's not about what you get from the community, but what you can give, are the ones who we see being the most successful. Those who ask questions, share with others, attend webinars, and get out of their comfort zones are the ones who benefit the most from this private online community. Thanks for listening, guys. My Rehab Helper, over and out.